don't have any reports. I want people to be reassured that when they get up tomorrow to go vote, if they have not voted already, that everybody in the city is working and has been working for months to make sure that there will be nothing tough about that experience and nothing to fear in that experience. But I also want to be clear. Anybody who thinks it's time to play militia, F around and find out. Anybody who thinks it's time to insult, to deride, to mistreat, to threaten people, F around and find out. We do have the cuffs, we do have the jail cells, we do have the Philly juries, and we have the state prisons. So if you're going to try to turn an election into some form of coercion, if you're going to try to bully people, bully votes or voters, you're going to try to erase votes, you're going to try any of that nonsense, we're not playing. F around and find out.
F around, find out. That is the message coming from the Philadelphia DA to anyone out there who wants to replicate Donald Trump's 2020 strategy and cosplay as a little militia member. You do so at your own peril. If you want to use our elections as a moment to intimidate voters or suppress turnout or make people feel afraid for exercising their right to cast a ballot in this election, then I hope it's worth losing your freedom over. The Department of Justice just issued a statement a couple of months back reiterating that it is in fact a federal crime to intimidate voters. There are criminal and civil prohibitions against voter intimidation and voter interference. Federal law prohibits intimidation, threats, and coercion throughout the voting process, including registering to vote, casting a ballot, and even at the stage of counting or tallying votes. Further, several federal laws protect against both actual and attempted intimidation, coercion, and interference. These statutes protect those who facilitate voting or aid voters, including election officials and volunteers. In addition, it is illegal to send out knowingly false information about the time, place, or manner of voting to prevent people from properly casting their ballots. And the punishment for doing so can be a fine and up to a year in federal prison. And in Pennsylvania, where the Philly DA is speaking from, it is also a crime, where intimidating a voter can result in up to 2 years imprisonment, and depriving or attempting to deprive someone of their right to vote can result in up to 5 years imprisonment. And if you think that the Philadelphia DA is bluffing, go ahead and test him. Not for nothing, but when the DA holds a press conference and says in no uncertain terms, F around, find out, something tells me that he means it. The fact is that Trump's campaign knows it can't win on the merits, and so it has to come up with other ways to gain power. That's why, for example, Republicans only allow one drop box per county in Ohio, meaning Franklin County, with 1.3 million people, has the same number of drop boxes as Monroe County with 13,000 people. Just one. That is a form of voter suppression. When Republicans tried to block UNC students in North Carolina from using student IDs to vote, that is a form of voter suppression. When black voters in Georgia waited hours to vote in precincts that were overwhelmingly minority majority, that is a form of voter suppression. I want to be clear, these people know what they're doing and they are doing it on purpose. They are making it as difficult as they possibly can to vote. And so my message here is clear. The harder it is to vote, the harder you should work to do it. Because the only way that changes is if you overcome the obstacles that are put in your way. It happened in Michigan when Democrats took control and now voting is widely available. And it's going to happen after this cycle in Wisconsin, where Democrats will take control of the legislature for the first time in years and pass voting rights reforms. And it can happen across the country, but it depends on you not submitting to the barriers erected precisely to prevent you from exercising your right to vote. Do not give these bad actors exactly what they want by refusing to show up. Don't reward the people who want to take your rights away. Here's a clip from a broader conversation I had with Mark Elias about the prospect of the Supreme Court ultimately having the opportunity to put their finger on the scale in this election, and here's the takeaway he offered from the prospect of someone who has been uniquely concerned about voter intimidation.
The most important thing people can do right now is to make sure they vote. You know, at this point, it is too late to vote by mail. So if you're planning on vote by mail, put it in a drop box or else vote in person, because it's not going to get to it's not likely if you put it in the U.S. Postal Service, it'll get in on time. If there's still early vote available, do that. But otherwise, show up on election day. So what I want you to do right now with the time that you are going to spend worrying about the U.S. Supreme Court is I want you to look up online where your local polling place is. And I want you to do that even if you think where it is, where you know where it is, because these things change over time. And I also want you to look up what the hours are. You may think you know what the hours are, but hours change. And I want you to sketch out in your mind or on paper what time of day you're going to go to vote and how you're going to make sure you have sufficient time to complete the voting process. Because the biggest thing we can do right now is have confidence that if everyone votes that Kamala Harris will win. If everybody votes, Hakeem Jeffries will be the next speaker. If everybody votes, Chuck Schumer will remain the Senate Majority Leader. If everybody votes, state houses and ballot measures that are critical to the future of this country will all succeed. So focus on that. And I promise you there will be lawyers and activists and campaigns who are going to fight to make sure that every vote is counted, and in the end they'll succeed.
In fact, state DAs like the one in Philadelphia have been even more aggressive than even the DOJ, another topic that I discussed with Mark Elias here. We've seen this a couple of times now in this election cycle. Why are we relying on local DAs to do the work that, in theory, the DOJ should be doing?
So look, this is a big question that I think we will only have answered in hindsight. You know, I have avoided in most of the public back and forth about the Department of Justice speculating as to why did this take so long? Why didn't they do this? Why did Jack Smith get appointed at the point that he did? Why wasn't this quicker? Why did they prosecute? Why did they prioritize one thing or the other? I think you know, Ron Klain, after he left the White House, who was you know, the chief of staff to Joe Biden and a very good, sober individual, he raised the question, you know, that a lot of people wonder, I think he said to Jen Psaki on MSNBC, a lot of people have wondered or been frustrated at how slowly some of the voting rights litigation was brought and how slowly some of the other criminal prosecutions around January 6th have been. History will be able to judge whether there was a systemic failure here or whether this was prudent. And I'm not going to second guess them right now in the lead up to the election, but I do, like all of you, you know, like many people, ask myself that question. But I'm going to assume that there are good reasons, but that over time we will come to understand what the thinking was around the decisions around Donald Trump, around some people around him, around January 6th, and around some of the just general attitude towards enforcement of and protection of the right to vote. What I know is this, is that there are lots of ways, including local DAs in New York, local DAs in Georgia, now a local DA in Pennsylvania, that the law can be enforced. There are lots of ways that the voting rights laws can be protected. You know, my law firm and I, we've brought dozens and dozens and dozens of cases since Joe Biden's been in office, and we've had a lot of success. Not total success. We've lost some cases, but we've won more than we've lost, and more than people predicted, in ensuring that there are fair districts, that the Voting Rights Act is enforced, that the constitutional right to vote is protected, that state constitutional and state statutory rights to vote are protected. So, you know, we're doing our part, and we will all see what the historians and the book writers have to say when they learn more about how the Department of Justice viewed this era.
So to Mark's point, we will have a longer conversation about the aggressiveness versus the timidity of the DOJ, but what is clear is that while some folks have been reticent to uphold the law, others haven't. And the Philadelphia DA, the same DA who took action against Elon Musk's so-called raffle paying people off to support Trump, is certainly among the latter group. So again, to those who are heeding the calls of Trump's most groveling sycophants, if your goal is to prevent Americans from exercising their rights to vote at the ballot box, just know that you are acting on behalf of a grifter who would not lift a finger for you, and you will be held accountable anyway. And to those who plan to vote, you can do so without fear and without hesitation. And if anything, use the prospect of these scumbags trying to prevent you from voting as inspiration to ensure that you cast your ballot. Send a message to the bad guys that while they might feel emboldened by Trump, he is going to lose and they're going to go crawling back to wherever it was they came from. Before you go, just a quick note, if you'd like to see more of my content, which is always free of advertising, sponsorships, and paywalls, please make sure to subscribe to this channel using the subscribe button right here on the screen. And if you'd like to support my work even further, you can grab a copy of my instant #1 New York Times selling book, Shameless, available for sale right now. That link is also on the screen. Thanks so much for watching.